So let's look at the audience. Who in the audience knows or who doesn't know what VFS is? Okay, so I'll be running through it. This is going to be aimed at people who just want to know a bit about it, who've maybe seen it, maybe heard about it, have no idea what it is, they want to learn a bit more about it. They might be interested in taking part in VFS in the future, so there's a little bit in here for you. There's a bit about people who've done VFS, maybe you want some tips. There'll be some of that as well. And there's some people here because there was something about some free cake. It's somewhere around the audience. So it's quite a broad talk. So for some people, it might go a bit kind of like whoosh. Some people they're like, yeah, I heard all this before. I will try and spread accordingly. I know there's some people here who've done VFS, some people who haven't done anything about it, so I'll try and keep the pace moving. So, who the hell am I? So, I started skydiving badly in 2008. Anyone who's seen my AFF videos can testify to that. Pulled one of my levels, I pulled about sort of 2,500, 3,000 feet, so yeah, there's that. I was at University of Warwick, did quite a bit there, became president one year, did some stuff within the Beast PA. Done about 1,900 skydives over the years, about 120 hours a tunnel. Just weekend worrying, basically. And then joined Omni 99. And 5 VFS gold medals in that. Have since become the VFS rep, although they're changing the reps now, we're going to become advisors. All part of the new British skydiving rebrand. And I've had the chance and opportunity to compete all over the world as part of Team GB. Had a chance to go to Australia, America, Czech Republic, got France, got Belgium coming up later this year. So huge opportunities, and these are opportunities that anyone else can also achieve. We just started it as yeah, let's have a go, and suddenly oh, we've got all these things coming up. So, VFS in one slide. So, vertical formation skydiving is formation skydiving for free flyers. You can do it as teams of 4 or also teams of 2, plus a camera flyer. Unlike normal FS, where you see people walking around in these ridiculous suits, sausages everywhere, booties, so you have to stack your landings all the time. You don't have any of that malarkey. A normal free fly suit is absolutely fine, so you don't need to go off and buy anything specialized. Another important thing, no creepers as well. You see them lying around, crushing each other's fingers, getting dirty, they're not working, they're wonky. No, none of that. We do all our practicing standing up, so it's FS for the lazy people. There's a range of different formations to learn. So all the formations are given to you in a dive pool, and you need to go off and learn these formations and learn how to link them together. A mixture of head up and head down flying. So some formations all head down, some there's got a lot of head up in. Hands up who thinks the head up formations are easier. Yeah, the head down formations are much easier. Head up is really, really hard. Even though you have to get your FF1 first, so you've got to start learning to fly head up before you learn to fly head down. Once you go head down, everything's so much easier. You can move around a lot easier. You're not having to try and do this balancing act while then trying to take grips as well. It's just a nightmare. Head down flying is the way forward. At a competition, these formations which you've learnt, they'll be drawn randomly. And the team that completes the most formations wins. Anyone who is at Lucy's talk will find out how the judges hate everyone and want to bust you down and everything. No, they're really nice. They're really trying to help you, and they'll always try and help you score well at these competitions. And that's VFS. Like I said, I will reiterate, it is formation skydiving. It's sometimes oh, is it an artistic discipline? No, not really. In artistics, you have to put a free round together. You've got to put a lot of your imagination, a lot of artistic flair into this. This is a lot more kind of here are your formations. Boom, 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 boom. Go fly them as best you can. So, would it be for me? You don't need to know any advanced skills beyond flying head down. I'll do a little bit more about what skills you need to learn, but once you've cracked head down, VFS is open to you. Maybe you want to try something new. Maybe you've been free flying for a while. You've done quite a lot of tracing. You're moving around. Maybe you just want to try something different. If you like to focus for your skydiving, some people, they turn up the weekend, they do a few jumps, have some beers, go home. Some people absolutely love that, and that's absolutely great. Some people will be no, I want to I'm spending a lot of money in this sport. I want to try and see some kind of progression. I want to kind of work out how I'm getting better. So this is quite good for this. But again, you don't have to be. This doesn't have to be competitive. You can just go, we're going to do this, we're going to go fly some VFS with a few jumps. Maybe you enjoy competition. Maybe you used to do four-way flat. So I was in that camp. I once did a FS team, got a bronze medal in A, learned to free fly, and then suddenly I was like, I can do this again, but now do free flying, which is way more fun than flat fly. And you also get a chance to go to world level competitions. So like I say, we had no idea we'd have the opportunity to do these things, and suddenly we go to competitions like, we get invites to go to America and Australia. This is pretty cool. And then learning and competing is a huge amount of fun. The competitive side of this is absolutely awesome, and just learning things and like seeing your skills progress. So this is a VFS jump. It's filmed a couple times, a couple different camera angles, just to roughly see what's going on. So there's four of us. We're taking grips. So you see most of the grips we're taking on hands, so we don't need any of these grippers or booties or anything like that. Mixture of head up, head down. Camera's filming underneath. So all the footage in this is by the absolutely awesome Dan Guest. Go get a signature later. So, yeah. Lots of grip taking. And yeah, using all formations and trying to just fly as close as possible together. Right. Cool. So how on earth do you get into VFS? How do you avoid catastrophe exits like that, where people just going all over the place straight out of the plane? So I mentioned a bit about skills. In the sky, you need FF2. So you might have got your FF1, done a little bit of work, might as well got your FF2. That officially is all the skills you need. When you do your FF2, you have to be able to transition from head up to head down. You've got to be able to turn around in the sky. You've got to be able to move up and down. That's the bare level of skills you need to do VFS. Tunnel flying is highly recommended. This is a point I will iterate throughout this presentation. The tunnel is absolutely awesome. Go use it to learn. You can really accelerate your learning curve in this sport, in pretty much most things, but especially in VFS. A lot of the formations are very confusing, and when you're on the ground, you're like, am I upside down? Am I right up? Go to the tunnel, you can practice it, you can look, oh yeah, I've got to be like this. It's so much easier to learn in the tunnel than it is in the sky. In the tunnel, you might start doing back fly, back to sit, head up stuff, moving around, start learning head down, you move around in head down, start doing a bit of in-face carving. This bracket is where VFS lives. Then you start continuing in the tunnel, you start learning layouts, out-face carving, breakers, really loads of awesome stuff that's absolutely awesome, incredible. That's when you start moving into the artistic, dynamic side of flying. So VFS really is like at this level here. All of that lot will help, like in everything. The more skills you learn, the more comfortable you'll feel. But you don't need to go off and invest hours and hours and hours and hours of tunnel time learning really awesome looking things if you want to do some VFS. Being able to just get in the tunnel, transition. Yeah. And like people are like, oh, head down, so hard to learn the tunnel. Coaching has developed massively over the last few years. New techniques and new ways of like bringing people up. Gone are the days of making people just do handstands for hours and hours and hours before like even thinking about lifting you off the net. So it's possible to get like from 0 tunnel time to being able to fly head down confidently in the tunnel in single-digit hours of time. So first of all, you've got to find a group of people to fly with. And this is probably the biggest hurdle in VFS, and there's always like, it's the battle like I'm constantly raging now. It's hard to find a group, especially people who are all of a similar level and also then keen to then start doing this. There's loads of FS, like flat FS flies. When you start finding free flies, yeah, it gets a bit tougher. But ask around the drop zone, at the tunnel, if you are doing tunnel coaching, ask your coach if there's people who are similar level to you. Maybe there's group tunnel flying nights where people will book it out, go spend some money, do 20 minutes of tunnel with a group of people. Maybe you like that group of people who are complete random people you don't know. Ask them, hey, do you want to do some more time together? That was really fun. And you can start putting those up. That's how I started. Facebook is, fortunately/unfortunately, one of the best ways of communicating this out. So there's a few Skydive community pages out there. And then maybe you haven't got 4 of you, maybe there's 3 of you, 2 of you. It's possible to go off and do a lot of this stuff as 2 or 3. You can go off and still develop a lot of the skills. Once you've found some people, come up with a plan. What are your goals? Do you want to just try a little bit? Do you want to just do a few jumps? Maybe do a scratch team at nationals. The first competition I ever did in VFS was a scratch team. We'd never jumped together as a group. And that's what we wanted to achieve, and we did it. Or maybe you want to get super awesome. Maybe you want to compete at nationals and win a gold medal. So once you find a group, try and work out those goals. A lot of people, they'll get a group, and they'll aim for one of these, but they didn't really plan ahead for it, and then they end up really disappointed by the end of it. So you've got to come up with a plan and manage expectations. First few jumps, really, really simple. Keep them simple. I see people go, right, we're going to do these 5 formations on this jump. And in reality, they didn't even start the first one because they were so busy thinking about, no, I've got to do this, then this, then this, then this. Start really simple. Get an exit, being able to launch an exit. Get that sorted. Then once you can fly all flying head down, stick with head down formations. Don't go, let's throw some head up into this. There are very few shortcuts aside from practice. We did quite a lot of jumps. We've done quite a lot of tunnel. But practice does work. I'm going to show some videos later of some progression over the years and over some jumps. And you'll see how practice does help. Go to the tunnel. I will iterate this again. It's so much easier to learn in the tunnel. The hardest formations are, I would say, almost impossible to learn out of it. But there are categories of VFS that are a lot easier. So they cut out a lot of these hard formations if you can't get to the tunnel for whatever reason. The first year was the year we did the most amount of tunnel as we've been competing, because we had to learn all these formations. And find a coach if possible. There's a lot of really hard ways of flying formations, and coaches will tell you the easy ways. It's really upsetting seeing a group of people try and fly something that is fundamentally very simple, and they're making it really, really difficult for themselves. And they go away thinking, wow, VFS is really hard. And it's like, well, actually, no, very, very small tweaks can really help out and make it a whole lot more enjoyable. This is generic for pretty much any type of team, not just VFS. Come up with a plan. It can be a commitment doing a team. It can be like, right, we're going to put all our money into this year. This is going to be all our jumping. It doesn't need to be. So you can really balance this out, but decide on your goals. Work out what you want to do and where you want to get up to. Like I say, this is true for any type of team or any type of competitive skydiving, not just VFS. No two team circumstances are the same. So there's no one solution that fits this. So work out with your group, and you've got to work with each other to try and sort this. We planned our year out in January, February. We booked out all our weekends, and then, so there's no arguments like, oh, let's do some skydiving next weekend. Oh, no, we can't. We've got weddings or whatever. Plan it in the year ahead, and then it reduces on the arguments later on. So our first year, our plan was compete at nationals and give the established team a good run for their money. Our past experience was 0 as a team. We'd done a scratch. Some of us had done a scratch team the year before. We'd fun jump together, and we knew each other. So that was like the way we got together as a team. But we'd never done VFS before. Only 3 of us could do head down in the tunnel. And we could fly head down-ish. We just got FF2s, so very new levels, sort of free flyers. We did 16 hours in the tunnel over the year. Because you're flying as a 4-way, you're splitting the cost by 4, which helps. But yeah, we spread that. We did quite a bit, like once or twice a month. Went to Bedford, flew over the weekend, flew Saturday, flew Sunday, and our progression just went whoosh, like this. And we got 140 jumps in, which we did abroad. 2 weeks again, we had coached. We tried to get as much coaching as we could. Result, very close competition, and we just about managed to scrape the gold medal out of it. So we were going from, yeah, we'll see what happens, come up with a plan, we got a good result out of it. So the dive pool. So I mentioned about turning formations. I'll do a quick bit about what the formations are. All FS events have what they call randoms and blocks. I don't know where the name comes from. Randoms, you'll get a picture, very sort of cryptic picture looks like this. These represent the people. They generally come with a letter or a number and a name. We have no idea what the names are called. We generally start learning them by the letters. So they're just 1 point, move on to the next one. Then we have blocks. So a block, they're worth 2 points. They have a starting formation, a move, and a closing formation. So these can be a bit trickier. There's no rhyme or reason as to which ones are harder, which ones are easier. The numbering, the ordering doesn't make any difference to like the first formation. Like A might be like the hardest formation, so you can't just go, oh, we'll just ignore the bottom set. Some in the middle are really tough. It's just the way that the thing was designed. When you leave the plane, you've got 35 seconds to do as much as you can. As you go up to more and more categories, you have more formations per round. In the lower categories, you're only going to think about doing 1 or 2 formations. As you start going up to higher categories, you could have 5 or 6 formations you've got to learn and remember and have in your head as you're going down. Harder formations have head-up flyers or maybe out-facing slots, so it might involve people having to turn around and face away from the formation. For a new team, all formations are achievable in the tunnel. For a new team, many of the formations are very difficult in the sky. The sky really makes things a lot more difficult. The lack of walls trying to keep you all contained, it's very easy for people to start pinging off the formation and you won't see them again for the rest of the skydive. Again, learn a few formations to start with. Find 2 or 3 formations you want to try and fly with. Get them working. Practice them a few times before going like, oh, that kind of half worked, we'll do something different. Try it a few times and you go, okay, this worked pretty well, we'll move on to something else. So, a VFS jump, start with, this is how a VFS jump would sort of go. Walk the dive, the launch, in the air, break off and debrief. And I'll go over these sort of things. So, walking the dive, making sure everyone knows where they're supposed to be, who they're gripping with and what hand. Everyone should understand the skydive. The worst thing is when you've had some people, they've walked it and everything, and does everyone understand? And someone goes, well, not really, but I'll work it out in the air. No, you won't. Make sure people know what they're doing. So some formations require you to have like your right hand or your left hand, or am I on this person or on this person? Chat about it on the ground, work it out. It's free on the ground. And yeah, make the most of it, make the most of the time. If it's not clear, chat about it. Maybe like, oh, this could work better if I was in this slot or whatever. Work out on the ground, go to the mock-up, work out where everyone needs to be, who's hanging onto the bar, who's outside the plane, inside the plane. Make the most of this time. And this is, again, true for all skydiving. Practice it on the ground. Makes things work so much nicer in the air. So, the exit or launch. You can launch anything you like from the plane, whatever you want, but generally stick with something that's not going to explode. Once you're confident you can exit the plane, it's much faster to launch the first formation you need to fly. So the first formation is going to be randomly drawn. So if you can launch that formation first, you're going to save a lot of time on your skydive. So again, you're trying to store as many points as you can, so you don't want to waste time launching something which is safe, but you don't have to move away from. So it's this balance between safety versus speed. Launches come into about 4 categories of roughly increasing difficulty. All head down, a single head-up flyer, opposite head-up flyer, side-by-side head-up. So for beginning teams, we're going to stick with head down. So this is the recommended launch for people straight away. Boom, straight out in the air. And there's a lot of things we're looking for here. 1, we're all flying immediately head down. So think about where the wind is coming from when you're leaving the plane. Some people tend to full head down formation sideways out the plane. Well, the wind's not coming from the side, it's coming from forwards. So we're thinking about launching forwards, getting all our heads and hips lined up with the wind. And it just means we're just flying straight away. We're not having to faff around or the things wobbling around all over the place. Straight away we're flying. But also, so Dan's here, we're showing Dan all the grips. Here's all our points, we've got them straight away. So 1 second in, we've already got a point on our skydive. So this is a really solid exit to launch. Gets everything in the right place and gets everyone all set up. It's very reliable. It's called an A. And from this formation, you can actually change to a lot of different formations, something called grip switching. So this is us in our first year. We launched that formation, and then we just moved it into a different one straight away. We launched something safe, and we moved it into something that was a little bit more risky for us at the time. So we've launched that formation, and then we've just pulled it all out. Right, there's our first formation. That's our first point. And then we're going. The risk was we'd launch it, and it would just all tumble, and we scored nothing. And we'd have lost almost the whole round. You can also use this for getting head-up flyers out the plane if you can't launch head-up. Oh, there's our head-up flyers. So a really safe way of trying to get people in different orientations out the plane. So once you've kind of got a bit hang of head-down formations, right, let's try in a single head-up flyer. A lot of it's the same. You're only changing one person. There's lots of ways of doing this, lots of variations. You might, and depending on your team, how your team flies it, depends on what you're up to. Look, it does rely on quite a strong head-up flyer. They've got to be able to jump out the plane and be flying head-up straight away. But if you're doing it over a few years, after a year of doing VFS, you're going to be pretty good at head-up by now. It's easier, though, to transition. Have someone launch head down and then just transition into head-up. It's a lot safer, but it is slower. Then you need 2 people head-up. So we'll launch something like that out. It's actually a lot easier than it looks. We're basically just hanging on, letting the head-down people fall out the plane and the head-up people just falling off. But again, we've practiced this a few times. We started learning this roughly in our first year, but we didn't take it to a competition. It took us a couple of years before we were comfortable that we could do this without it exploding. And then side-by-side head-up. This is trickier. So it's because it's a long line formation, it has a lot of tendency to stretch out as it leaves the plane. So the timing on this is a lot harder. Rather than just have the thing just trying to fall out, everyone should be leaving at the right time, facing the right way, hips all facing the right directions. It is very tricky, and we didn't even try it in a competition for 4 years. But we were trying it beforehand, we were practicing it, we were seeing how it goes. But eventually, we got it, and now we can launch it quite comfortably. So, very tricky, but it doesn't need to be tricky. Stick with something safe. Good exit will set up the whole skydive. If you launch the plane and you're going to explode and go absolutely everywhere, you're going to waste your skydive. You're going to spend the next sort of group getting back together. However, at the beginning, it will happen. In that case, have someone as the base. Decide before you go up, right, if we all go up, we're going to explode, I will be the base. So that person is basically just going to stay there and let people work towards them. If you don't have that, everyone decides, I'm going to fly to this person, and that person's thinking, I'm going to fly to that person. And you end up just circling around each other for the rest of the skydive. So have someone as the base, have someone to work towards when it explodes, and it saves you a lot of time when it does, and it will explode. Practice, 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 practice. So some examples of some of our progression. So in our first year, this launch, 2015, some people start drifting away, flying away, and we haven't seen them to this day. A few jumps later, same year, still a bit wobbly. Oh, no, nearly. And then a few years later after that, a lot better. We're now staying all in frame, getting a lot quicker, it gets a lot quicker. You've got to practice these things, but you do get the progression. Again, you only have a certain number of jumps to do in a year. There's a lot of formations to learn from. There's about 40. So we can't practice all of these things. And how many jumps do you want to spend learning a launch? So you've got to start planning your time and just working things out accordingly. So it's generally sticking with one exit. Get one exit really good. If you've launched that one exit 50, 100 times, you're going to be very good at it. And it's going to be very strong and very stable. Different example. Stan's fault. But yeah, practice really, really helps. Right, this video footage is over the pace of 1 day. We were basically just doing this exit every single jump, and it got a bit frustrating. It's like, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. But then you just keep practicing at it, working out what's going on, using the video footage, working out some timings. But you start getting there. But it's the consistency, it's the practice. And again, any type of skydiving, the first time you're going to do something, you're going to suck. But that's the first step. Keep working at it, keep working at it, keep working at it. And I think this is quite recently. It's a lot smoother. It's a lot calmer. we're staying together, we know where we're going. Done. So, in the sky, so you've launched out the plane, you haven't exploded, you're all together as a group. Great, now what? If you haven't been in the tunnel, fly simple formations. Keep them as calm as possible. Try finding about think about like, we're just going to launch a round, and we're just going to turn it around, and stick with that. Don't try and rush things. Don't say, don't try like, oh, let's try and score 50 points this jump. You're not going to. You're just going to degrade what you're trying to do. Don't rush. Being in the tunnel, exactly the same. Keep it calm. But there's a few more formations you can start trying. And then this is where there's a huge overlap with the tunnel. In the tunnel, obviously, you can't launch from the plane. But once you're in the sky, there's a few changes, like you're not wearing a rig. There's walls trying to help you keep you in. But the air is very, very similar. In the sky, you've got about 45 seconds to practice something. On a good day's jumping, that's going to work out about 6 minutes of actual air time. A day in the tunnel, you can get 40 to 60 minutes of practice. That's a huge amount of like improvement you can see over the course of a day compared to jumping. We would find, do quite a bit of tunnel, try it in the air. Do some more tunnel, try it in the air. Drop zones like in Korea, they've got a tunnel on site. We would go to the tunnel, spend 10 minutes in the tunnel first thing in the morning, practice the jumps we're going to do for that day, and then go fly them. Make the most of it. So these are some good formations to try out. Oh, sorry. So, all head down, build a round, spin it round, and close it. Very similar, build a formation, build a flower, everyone does a 360 in place, and rebuild it again. There's a lot of skills you're trying to develop in this. Flying close to each other, flying in each other's burble. It can get very kind of pushy, very shovey. You might suddenly find that, oh God, I can't fly because someone's causing all this disruption. So these are good skills to practice. Flying in, doing a 360 in place, you end up sort of doing this kind of like a little bit of a waltz around the sky. So they're really good skills to practice. And really good sort of first jumps to try. That's not playing. So this is one that's good for keeping people like practicing head up and head down transitions. There's a lot of transitions you've got to do. If you've got some people who are quite comfortable flying head up, flying close, this is a good formation to do. Having people dock onto the head up flyers makes if you're hanging onto a head up flyer, you can basically push them wherever you want to around the sky. They're good formations to learn. We don't have a lot of tunnel footage. You start doing quite a lot of tunnel, then you you don't start saving tunnel footage, otherwise you start rapidly running out of hard drives. But the tunnel keeps you all close, it keeps you all together. It's a lot easier to practice things. Often you can get access to the video footage really quickly and easily. You can fly something, get out of the tunnel, look at the video, oh, this isn't working, jump back in the tunnel. But you see how it's keeping everyone a lot closer together. We're flying a lot closer than we might do in the sky. We're not quite so bumpy, we're not got issues with levels or anything. Cross-referencing. So there's 4 of you. You need to be looking at someone. Generally, that person is opposite you, not the person you're hanging on to. Reasons for that is it keeps the formation really nice and close. If you're hanging on to someone, you know where they are. You don't really need to be looking at them. Formations which involve groups separating, as you start looking away from the formation, you're going to go that way. So we limit. Often we have to turn around, so we can't avoid it always. But at some point, we don't have to turn around. Keep facing as much as possible to that opposite person. Transitions. All transitions are through the back. So through the back, head down to sit. Through the back, sit to head down. It's the safest way of doing it. When you do a transition, you're going through your back. You're going to present a larger surface area to the wind. It's going to cause you to gain lift and lift up from the formation. The way to mitigate that is ball up more or try and do it as fast as possible. Like minimize that time spent on your back. You start doing a lot of transitions, you start getting good at them. You start thinking about, okay, who do I want to be facing after I finish the transition? Am I taking a grip with this hand afterwards? So you might think about, okay, through the transition, I'm going to start thinking about taking this grip. But these are things to build up with. Start with, just get your transitions sorted. They never are sorted. There's always work to do on transitions. The time we waste between doing formations, it's probably because someone's transitioned and they floated away during the transition. It really is the hardest part of doing this. But it's something you have to start with right from the word go, and you do get a lot of practice with it. Right, so we've launched from the plane. We had an awesome skydive. Now we need to break off. So the camera films below you. Do not hit your camera flyer. A normal free flight break off, you're flying, you're having a group, so you'll probably drop to your back, check your airspace above you, and then start moving away from the formation. If you're head down, you're looking into formation, okay, see everyone, you're going to turn around and then just fly away. VFS, it's likely no one's above you if it's gone all right. If it's carnage, there's people everywhere, yeah, again, check above you. But I can see one person, and I know there's a cameraman below me. So, contrary to normally what everyone gets taught, this is the only time you're allowed to belly out and like zoom off. So you're going to move directly away from the center, unless of course someone's behind you. Because a lot of the formations, you might have stuff where people are moving around you, behind you. Go, okay, I know someone's behind me. I'm going to wait for them to come back round, and then I'm going to disappear. So do not do this from our first year. Sorry, Dan. So we had a bit of a crash during the formation. Poof, poof. And Dan had to change his underwear. It can happen pretty quickly, and yeah, it's not ideal. This is better. We've basically just gone into a hard stall and just sort of, or what people might call like belly tracking away from the center of the formation. We're all gone into clear airspace, nice and safe, and Dan is very happy. Cool, and finally, debrief. Go watch the video. There's so much to learn from watching the video of a jump, so much to learn. We're free flying, so everyone's got a camera. External camera is the best, especially for exits. There's timing issues going on. You need to have someone who's kind of got like taken a step back from the launch and going, okay, you've left really early, or you're not hanging on, or something. But in the formation, if you can't find an external camera flyer, jump with internal footage. You'll be able to start seeing like you're over there or you're over here. Use the footage. Have a look at the footage. If possible, find a coach or a third party. It doesn't have to be a coach. Just have a look at the footage with you. When there's 4 people jumping together as a group and someone's made a mistake, unless they kind of go, yep, that was me, my bad, people do get quite confrontational when someone, if they're like, no, you're to blame, no, you're to blame, it doesn't help anyone. So having just a third party, just go, what are you doing over here, or is this right, or are you sure you're in the right place? Having someone who's not involved with that skydive is hugely beneficial just to kind of mediate things. Coaches have made all the mistakes already, and often they'll give you the advice so that you don't have to make them as well. There's a lot of things that people do in VFS that you start seeing, why are you doing that? It makes it really, really hard. There's lots of easy ways to do things, and that's what we spend a lot of time in training, trying to find those easy ways to try and make things go as fast as possible. So, this is a footage from Australia. This was our first round. About 4 years of practice. And like when you do skydive, you'll start getting like this overlay. This is the judges actually now judging the skydive. So the time's on the top right, and our score is in the bottom right. So every time we build a formation, bing, get a point. Cool. That was our highest scoring round for a little while. Then nationals this year, we then picked up a 20, but I don't have the footage for that, only. But yeah, you start doing all these things, you start building it up, and it all honestly starts coming together. You will start seeing the improvements. You start working as a team. You know, you don't have to worry about who's doing what or who's where, or am I doing the right thing? It does start. You start to build a rhythm, like anything else. It will start to come naturally. So I'll do a quick bit about VFS events this year. We've got our nationals coming up end of the year in September up at Hibblestow. It happens at the same time as the 8-way event. So we'll be sharing the plane with the 8-way flyers. 3 categories. 4-way open is what we compete into. This is the highest category. It's got all the formations, and it's a lot of fun. 4-way intermediate, we take away all the hard formations as a 4-way. Get rid of them, they're too difficult, too difficult, too difficult. If there's 4 people and you want to have a first go, find details about this. It's a lot easier, and you can come away with a really good score after a very modest amount of jumps. And then there's 2-way. So maybe you just can't find 4 people. Again, the hardest part of this is just finding the group. So maybe there's 2 of you. You found someone who's willing to film us for the weekend. Have a go at the 2-way competition. It all builds up quite nicely. So the skills you learn at 2-way translate almost immediately up to the 4-way, flying together, looking across it, flying with each other, flying, building transitions. It all builds up and it all helps. There's the indoor nationals, 4th of April this year at Bedford. That's a nice and easy competition to jump into. European Skydiving League. So for ages this was just flat flies. This is over in Belgium. I think this event is normally just a sort of an end of year party for a lot of teams. VFS now takes part in this event. So it's a good way of, you don't need to be invited or anything. You just turn up, go, hey, I want to take part, and they're like, great, come along, have fun. It's always got a really good atmosphere. Jumping's on the Friday and Saturday to make sure, there's no jumping Sunday to make sure everyone has a good party on Saturday night. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely worth recommending going to these ESL events. The UKSLs that take place, there's one in Neverhaven, one in Sibson, and one in Cark. We're looking at trying to put some 2-way VFS at these as well. Again, these have normally only been FS, like flat FS, but the judges are already there, so it's a good way of starting to practice and go to drop zones. You might be at a drop zone, you think, oh God, all the flatties are here again. But hey, let's have a go at some VFS. Let's have a go at this. So we're working out the logistics for this. So chances are that will happen at, again, Nevers, Sibson, and Cark. We do a bunch of road shows as well, where we go around, we take people up, walk through some VFS. Again, we're going to be talking for a lot of this, flying something simple, launching something simple, and just getting it flying. Facebook, again, it's normally the best source of info for all competitions. Trying to work out some other ways of doing this, but yeah, for the moment, this is the best way. Or you can try and contact me or anyone else from Omni directly, because we often have a lot of information what's going on. Or the British Skydiving website will hopefully have a lot of the events listed. And thanks for listening. Say thanks to all our sponsors and everything. They really help us out throughout the year. And yeah, thanks for coming to listen to me talk for 40 minutes or so.